Hey there, Slashaholics. Before we start tonight, I want to say a big thank you to all the patrons of this channel, because without them, the channel would simply not exist. So a very big thank you to Jay Gardner, Michael Clark, The Jersey Devil, Jason Epstein, Alex Vanover, Carl of Cthulhu, Chris Dozier, Cineretic CAX, EXC3LS10R84, Gucci Solo, Iron Alexa, Jackson Smith, Jordan Nicholson, Callie Gamer Girl 82, Catherine McClear, Katie Sabo, Kodo Bukiya, Transformers Bishoho, Marshall Jenkins, Morgan Cherney, Nick Valcarv, Peyton Loeb, William Schaefer, Yusuf McRae, Alvaro M., Jacob Hill, Jeremy Wilson, KC Hawaii, Liam Anderson, Scar, Donovan Shelton, EGSCW, Landon Turner, Mr. D. Author, Nick, and Serpenthrop. Thank you all so much. We really appreciate you. And if anybody listening would like to help support the channel to keep it going and growing for years to come, please consider joining our Patreon, making a PayPal or Cash App donation, or even ordering a Cameo video. All the information and links to do any of these is in the description and pinned comment below. We can't monetize the channel here on YouTube, so we really depend on slashaholics like you to keep the channel going. Thank you all so much, and please enjoy tonight's narration of Jason Goes to Hell, The Final Friday, the fan novelization by Jeremy Terry. Chapter 17, Duke Lays It All Out. Jessica pulled to a stop in front of Pamela Voorhees' long-abandoned home and jumped out. Dim, flickering light shone through some of the downstairs windows, giving the already creepy house a subtle air of foreboding. Reminds me of Shirley Jackson's Hill House, she thought, as she approached the door and stepped inside. Only what walks here doesn't walk alone. It has my baby girl. Freshly lit candles lined the hallway, creating shifting shadows at every corner. Something shifted to her left, and she turned into the parlor to see Creighton Duke sitting on the sideboard beside an old book and a strange dagger. He held her sleeping daughter in his rough hands. "You came alone," he said, smiling at her. "Good girl. Jason could have jumped into anyone else but you by now." Jessica took a step towards him. Image of a mama bear ready to fight for her cub. "What the hell do you think you are doing, grabbing my baby and bringing her here?" "Hold it," Duke said, scooping up the daughter and holding it near Stephanie's face. Jessica froze, frightened. Would this man resort to hurting an innocent baby to get what he wanted? The glint in his eye said yes, but the smile still stretched across his lips said maybe not. She looked at Stephanie, decided she should err on the side of caution. Maybe he could be reasoned with. "Duke," she said, holding her hands out to him. "Robert is dead. I know about your bounty, but you are never going to see any of that money. It's over. Please, just give me my baby." Duke lowered the dagger slightly and held Stephanie out for Jessica to take. "Just give me 2 minutes." Jessica took Stephanie from him and quickly made sure that she wasn't hurt before looking back up at Duke. The bounty hunter nodded gratefully. "It's not about the money for me. It was a nice bonus, but I was never really into it for that. It's not why I do what I do. It's a sad story, really. I'll tell you about it sometime, if we all get out of this mess alive." "What do you want from me?" "Tonight," he said, "we can get that bastard. Tonight, we can send Jason Voorhees straight to hell for all time." Jessica shook her head, took a step back. "You don't need me for that." "Yes, I do," he said, tossing the dagger to her. She caught it deftly in one hand, holding on to Stephanie with the other. "Only through a Voorhees can he be reborn," Duke said. He took a step forward and pointed to the blade in her hand. "And only a Voorhees can kill him. With that, the Kandarian dagger used to perform the ritual that first gave Jason life." Jessica looked down at the grotesque knife in her hand and shuddered at the feel of its bone handle, at the gleeful grinning skull adorning its pommel. "No," she said. "I won't put my baby in any more danger. I'm taking her away from this god-awful town and all its ghosts." You don't understand, girl. You will always be in danger until Jason is dead. He knows no remorse, no pity. He won't stop coming for you until he gets you, until he is reborn. Then he will kill you and your sweet baby." Jessica flinched at the harbinger of dread before her, at the depth of despair his words foretold. She looked into her sleeping baby's face and felt like crying or screaming. How could fate be so cruel to one so blameless? How could the both of them be held prisoner to such fear? "If you want this to be over," Duke continued, "if you want your baby out of danger, then you will end this abomination before more people have to die, like your friends, like your mother, because until you kill him, it will never be over." Jessica looked at the dagger, clutched in her hand, and back to Duke. "What am I supposed to do? Challenge him to a machete fight?" Duke put a hand over his left breast. "You need to stab him in the heart. It has to be the heart." She opened her mouth to reply, and then they both turned to face the front of the house. Headlights played along the dooryard, lit the windows with artificial daylight. They heard a door slam and running feet drawing near. That could be Stephen," she said. "Jason will have jumped into a new body by now," Duke said. "You can't trust anyone." "It couldn't be Stephen." Duke stepped towards her, his hand outstretched to hold her back. "No, Jessica, you can't trust him. Do you understand?" Suddenly a loud crack resounded through the room as a trapdoor hidden by accumulated grime gave way beneath Duke's heavy tread, sending him crashing down into the cluttered basement below. Jessica heard him cry out as she lay Stephanie in the center of the big table, and then went to a knee beside the hole. Duke lay among the discarded detritus of forgotten years at the bottom of a spindly wooden ladder, clutching at a long piece of metal that jutted from his right thigh. "Duke!" Jessica shouted. "Hold on! I'm coming!" Footsteps behind her. She spun around, dagger at the ready, and saw one of the last people she'd expected to see. Sheriff Ed Landis stood in the parlor door, his nose a bloody ruin. He reached for her, and then stopped when she brandished the blade at him. "Ed?" she asked. "Is it really you?" Landis raised an eyebrow, watching the dagger nervously. "Of course it's me. Are you okay?" "You can't trust him!" Duke yelled from below. "Kill him! Do it!" "Stay there, Ed," Jessica said. Landis took a step forward, holding his hand out to her. "Give me the knife. You don't need it. No one is going to hurt you." He took another step closer. He was almost close enough to touch her. She remembered back to the sheriff's office, to the sound his nose made when it broke. She remembered how he had crumpled to the floor. "I thought you were dead," she said. "You were wrong." She stepped back to widen the space between them. "Stay back! Don't come any closer!" But Landis wasn't listening. He charged forward before she could react and twisted her arm up. Jessica fought desperately to maintain her grip on the dagger. "Freeze!" said a new voice near the door. She and Landis separated and turned to see Randy staring down the barrel of a gun at them. The deputy looked rough, his face bruised from repeated run-ins with Stephen over the last several hours. "Get the hell away from her, Ed." Landis studied his subordinate for a moment, and then turned his attention back to Jessica, circling to her left, intent once again on the weapon in her hand. Jessica felt like she couldn't breathe. She looked from one man to the other as panic reared its ugly head. "Duke!" she shouted. "What should I do?" "Kill them both!" "No, I can't!" Duke yanked the piece of metal from his leg and tossed it aside, grunting in pain. He looked up at the square of dim light 10 feet overhead. "Do it or die!" Landis rushed forward again, and Jessica reacted instinctively to defend herself. The dagger slid into the old man's chest with ease. Jessica could feel the throb of his heartbeat through the knife's handle. His eyes grew wide as the realization of his death washed over him. He reached out to brush her cheek, and then he fell on top of her. The dagger struck the floor and tore free to roll across the floor. It came to rest beneath the old sideboard. "Oh God," she thought as she shoved Landis off of her. "He's dead. I killed Ed." She got to her feet and saw Randy looming over her baby. He looked up at her with dead eyes, and then he was leaning over Stephanie. Jason had pulled from childhood memories and from the memories of Randy to form the words that assisted his deception. It had worked. The other man was dead. There was no one left to interfere with his work. His mouth was opening wide to reveal the black worm. She rushed forward and began to beat and pull on the possessed man, but it was no use. Below him, Stephanie woke up and began to cry, the sound giving strength to Jessica. She managed to force Randy's head away from her daughter, but it was a small victory. Already the burst of strength was fading, and his mouth moved lower. She clawed at his cheeks, his eyes. She screamed for someone to help. A shape moved through the parlor door. She looked, and there was Stephen holding a machete in his hand. He was disheveled, dirty, and bloody. He looked like an angel to her. "Stephen, it's him! Help me!" "Get away from her!" Stephen yelled as he raced across the room and swung the machete side-armed. The cutting edge caught Randy below the Adam's apple, severing his windpipe. Only a few strands of meat and sinew held his head on. "Oh shit," Jessica mused. "Sean turned him into a human piss dispenser." She felt maniacal laughter bubbling up from the depths of her soul and had to choke it back down. She'd go insane if she gave vent to it. Randy fell, his body already showing signs of putrefaction, the skin beginning to melt. What remained of his neck flexed as something large forced its way out of the body. Jessica caught a glimpse of something black and glistening slither away into the shadows. "Where is it?" she asked as she picked Stephanie up and cradled her against her chest. Stephen was trying to look everywhere at once, wishing he had eyes in the back of his head. Something slithered to his right, and he turned just in time as the worm thing jumped towards Jessica's face. It was hideous, its face that of a horned demon, its mouth full of razor-sharp teeth. Strong arms tipped with long claws sprouted from its torso. Stephen caught it in midair and held it at arm's length as it thrashed at his face, trying to destroy the obstacle in its way. He threw it away from him in revulsion, watched it sail into the open closet and fall down the hole in the floor into the basement below. Jason hit the dirty basement floor, his body absorbing the impact with ease, and looked around him. He saw the dark-skinned man struggling up the ladder with the other's help, saw the girl's face for a moment through the opening. He started to crawl towards her, and then paused as the voices in his head began clamoring. "We feel it! She is near! We are so close! Look in the corner!" "Yes, my love," Mother said, her voice alive with triumph. "She is right there. Take her, Jason. Make yourself anew." He obeyed, crawling past the coveralls and hockey mask that Campbell had stashed down there before Jason had taken him. He crawled past a large wooden crate with large block letters stenciled on the side that read, 1834 Arctic Expedition Julia Carpenter, Horlicks University. Handle with care. Live specimen. Something moved inside the crates as he passed, reacting to his presence. "There she is!" the voices cried as a stocking-clad leg emerged from the darkness. She was cold, stiff, but that was all right. He didn't need warmth. He only needed her. Jason crawled the final feet that separated him from his destiny. Chapter 18. It's Alive. Duke crawled from the trapdoor and got to his feet with Stephen's help. The pain in his leg was bad, but not unbearable. Hot blood trickled down to soil his sock and fill his boots. He tested it and found that the leg would still support his weight. That was good because the shit show was far from over. He glanced to Jessica. "Where's the dagger?" I dropped it," she moaned, pointing to the sideboard. "It slid under the dresser over there." "Well, go get it!" Jessica took a step, and then she froze as she caught sight of Randy's remains on the floor near the piece of furniture. All his skin was gone, exposing his skeleton. He lay in a spreading puddle of human fluids, blocking her path. She gagged and turned away. I don't think so." Stupid, squeamish girl, he thought. He moved towards the sideboard, intending on retrieving the Kandarian dagger himself, but stopped when a basso profundo growl reverberated up from the basement below. "What is that?" Jessica whispered. "What is that thing doing?" Duke shook his head. "I don't know." Stephen turned to him, his eyes wide behind his glasses. "That part about being reborn through a Voorhees woman, does it have to be a living one?" "No, it doesn't." Stephen paled. "Duke, that thing is in the basement with Jessica's mother." Duke looked down at the trapdoor to the basement as ripping and tearing noises joined the growl. "Holy Mother of God!" Diana's stomach heaved, distended until her taut skin began to rupture. It was massive and still growing. A great split tore open down the middle from her sex to her sternum, and a fully grown man emerged. He was tall, well over 6 foot, and his skin was alabaster white, where it was not covered in Diana's blood. He looked at himself in a mirror that leaned against one wall, saw his hairless, muscled frame, met the malevolent burning red glare. He heard the voices shrieking with unholy joy because he was back. Jason was born again. The growling reached a crescendo as if a choir of demons sang beneath them, and then the floor exploded behind them. Duke spun and came face to face with the being that had haunted him since adolescence. He was made anew, no longer a rotting corpse stuck eternally between life and death, but a living, breathing monstrosity. "We need that dagger," he thought. "I have to buy some time." He stepped forward and took a fighting stance, beckoning the behemoth on. "Remember me, you son of a whore? Come get some of the Duke. I ain't afraid of no mama's boy." Stephen saw what Duke was doing and moved to join him. Duke waved him back. "Don't need your help, boy. You two just get that dagger. I'll soften up old bitch boy here. He's had this coming for a long time." Jason looked past him at Jessica and her baby. He wanted them first. He could handle the others at his leisure once they were both dead at his feet. He tried to move around Duke, and the bounty hunter shifted to block his path. Behind him, Jessica and Stephen got down on their knees and reached under the sideboard. Jason growled deep in his chest. He was tired of these two men getting in his way. He raised one massive hand and swung at Duke's head. Duke ducked the blow and countered with an elbow to Jason's right temple. He lashed out again, elbowing Jason in his other temple and kicking him in the side of the knee. He rained blow after blow, putting every ounce of frustration and pain and loss into the assault, expelling the accumulated despair of years. It was a pity that it didn't seem to faze Jason. "Lift it up!" Jessica shouted. "I can't reach it." "I'm trying," Stephen grunted. Duke moved in close and buried a knee in Jason's groin. Jason didn't flinch. Duke swung again and Jason caught his fist, pulling him into a bear hug. Jason squeezed, forcing the breath from his lungs. Duke had only seconds. He raised his hands on either side of Jason's head and brought them down, hitting the monster's ears with palms. Jason tightened his grip. "I've almost got it!" Duke's back sounded like a pine knot exploding in a fire when it broke. He would have screamed if he'd had the breath to. He gazed down into the hate-filled eyes and spat on the mask. For Anne, he thought, as the light began to fade from the world. All this is for her. The little girl in the pink dress. Tonight, I will see you in hell, you bastard. Stephen heard Duke's back break, saw Jason toss him aside like a wadded-up ball of trash, and dropped the sideboard. The demon from the other side of the mirror was coming for Jessica and his baby. He reached out with long fingers, ready to bring death to everything Stephen held dear. "Get away from me, motherfucker!" Stephen screamed, charging forward. He hit Jason around the waist and lifted him from the ground, carrying the both of them through a window out into the front yard. His skin burned where shards of glass sliced into him. He heard the rustle of dead grass, looked up to see Jason looming over him. Stephen felt around him, touched something hard, and swung it at Jason. The old rake's tine stabbed into Jason's chest, caused fresh blood to run. Jason growled in fury at the man, the little insignificant fly that kept getting in his way. He pulled the tool from his flesh and broke the head off, fashioning a spear. Stephen scrambled to his feet in time for Jason to strike him in the ribs, doubling him over. Another blow to the back sent him spiraling in the dirt again. Stephen rolled onto his back to see Jason standing above him, with the broken rake's sharp point poised to fall. Jessica laid Stephanie on the floor beneath the table, far away from what remained of Randy. The sound of fighting drifted to her through the shattered window. How long could Stephen hold out against an unstoppable beast like Jason? Even Duke could only last mere seconds. She had to reach the dagger. She stepped over Randy and went down on one knee to peek beneath the sideboard. The dagger was there, perched precariously on the edge of a large hole in the floor. She stretched her hand into the narrow gap, gritting her teeth as jagged splinters dug into her flesh. She felt the blade's handle brush against her pinky, and then it was gone, falling into the dark basement. Shit! She got to her feet and raced for the trapdoor. She reached the bottom of the ladder and paused for a moment. A shape lay on the ground to her right, surrounded by torn fabric and dark stains. She recognized the ankle bracelet that glinted above one foot. I gave her that for Christmas 3 years ago. No, there was no time for that now. She might freeze up for good if she saw what had become of her mom, saw what Jason had done to her. Stephanie needed her. Stephen needed her. The dagger had to be the other way. She turned her back on her mother and moved deeper into the gloom to search for a miracle. The rake handle descended and Stephen managed to roll away just in time. The rake handle dug into the soft earth, snapped in half. Stephen pivoted back and kicked Jason in the face, the groin. Jason lifted him by the shirt collar, held him over his head, and tossed him head first into a large rock half buried in weeds. Pain lanced through Stephen's head, and he saw stars. He couldn't afford to pass out. He would die if he did. He forced himself up on all fours and dragged his broken fingers along the rock. Bright agony brought the world around him back into focus, in time for him to hear Jason drawing near. Stephen looked left and saw another discarded tool on the ground. A shovel? What did these people do, just throw this shit into the yard when they got done with it? Stephen gripped the shovel's handle and swung it up, hitting Jason in the face again. Jason stumbled back as blood began to drip from the holes in his hockey mask. Hell yeah, I'm doing some damage. I might stand a chance. He shuffled to his feet and hit Jason a second, third, fourth time, sending droplets of blood flying. He swung again and Jason caught the shovel with one hand, stopping it cold. Or maybe not, he thought. Jason slammed the flat bottom of the shovel into Stephen's face, smashing his nose and sending him reeling back down to the ground again. Stephen coughed out a mouthful of blood, turned to see Jason tossing the tool away. Jason grabbed him, took a second to stare into Stephen's eyes, and then Stephen was flying through the air. He struck the top of the old jungle gym that sat rusting beside the house and cried out, I don't know how much more of this I can take. He pulled himself up into the top of the gym, hoping it would provide some momentary protection, an opportunity to catch his breath. Jason stared at him, tilted his head to one side as if to say, "Oh, really?" Steven gave Jason the finger. "Fuck off, you ugly fucktard!" Jason tilted his head the other way and then gripped the bottom rung of the jungle gym. He flexed and sent the whole thing tumbling over backwards. Steven struck the back of his head hard, and this time the world did swim away from him. He felt hands on his ankle and opened his eyes to see Jason dragging him from the jungle gym by one foot. He was exhausted. At the end of his rope, he barely had the strength left to throw a punch as Jason lifted him by the neck and began to choke him. "I'm sorry, Jess," he thought. "I tried." Suddenly, as if summoned by his thought, Jessica was there. She vaulted onto the monster's back and plunged the Kandarian dagger into his chest. It sank in halfway and stopped, caught on his rib cage. He flailed his arms, tossing Steven and Jessica from him. Steven hit the ground hard and curled into a ball, gasping for breath. Above him, Jason stumbled, reaching for the knife that partially transfixed him. "Did she do it? Duke said she was the one. Is it finished?" Steven heard a popping sound, and a bright ball of orange light flew from Jason's chest towards the sky, where dark storm clouds were gathering to obscure the stars. More followed, and suddenly the air around them was filled with a chorus of wailing voices. "No, it cannot be. They can't kill him. They can't destroy us. They haven't yet. It hasn't pierced the heart. The heart." So it wasn't over yet. Steven climbed to his feet and charged forward, pushed by desperate need and adrenaline. He kicked Jason in the face, punched him. He tried to push the dagger further in, but it wouldn't budge. He cocked his fist for another strike, and then Jessica was beside him, kicking the dagger with all of her might. This time, it went into the hilt. A huge ball of orange light exploded from Jason's chest, ascended to the roiling clouds, and then flooded back down into him in a pure white beam. The ground beneath their feet rumbled, and suddenly a forest of stone hands burst forth to grab onto him. Jason's eyes went wide with fear, and he began to struggle against his harriers. Steven saw first his feet, and then his calves disappear under the earth, and realized what he was seeing. The spirits were taking back what they gave to Elias Voorhees all those years ago. They were dragging Jason to hell. Steven pumped his fist in triumph, and then felt victory turn sour as Jason lunged out to grab him. New rock hands erupted around Steven, and he found himself being dragged down beside the killer. "No! Jessica! Help me!" he screamed. He held out his hand, and she was there. She grabbed his arms and pulled him from the jaws of the abyss. They collapsed into each other's arms and turned to watch as Jason was taken. A second passed, and there was only his shoulders and head. Another second, and he was gone. The light dissipated, and the clouds cleared to reveal the moon rising above the horizon. The wind sighing through the trees was the only voice that could be heard. Jessica cradled Steven in her arms, staring down into his upturned face, seeing him in a whole new light. What man would go through so much, risk everything for someone that rejected him? What man could love so deeply? My man, she thought, as she leaned down to kiss him. Steven kissed her back and then sighed, feeling that all his aches and pains were melting away. "I love you," she said. He smiled up at her. "I love you. Come on, let's go get our daughter and get out of here." "I think that sounds amazing, baby," she said. She stood and helped him to his feet, and they walked into the house arm in arm. Epilogue. the beginning of an ugly friendship. A predator stalked through the tall grass, its instincts screaming that it was in a bad place. It crossed the yard, weaving through the upturned jungle gym's bars, and paused to lick its furry feet. The name on the cat's collar was Ginger, a rather unoriginal name in her humble opinion. After all, her coat was the burnt orange of the rising sun. Still, they treated her well, so she tolerated them. The wind blew hard, ruffling her fur and displacing some freshly disturbed dirt nearby. She looked and saw something white peeking up through the dark soil. Could it be bone? She did not smell decay and sweet death, but she thought it was worth investigating anyway. Perhaps there would still be a morsel of meat attached that she could eat. She slunk forward and pawed at the object's edge, knocking more dirt free. She cocked her head to the side, curious. She had never seen a hockey mask before. She leaned in close to sniff, and yowled in fright, her orange coat standing on end. The white thing was bad, very bad. She backed away, too frightened to take her eyes off the mask. She reached the edge of the yard and sprinted away into the forest, headed for home. She would never hunt mice at the Voorhees house again. All of a sudden the wind died, and a pregnant silence descended over the old place. Then the rumble of wicked laughter filled the air.
Well, what have we here? Look at what the cat dragged in. A mongoloid with a machete. How pathetic. You got your ass kicked by a couple of brats. Still, I think I can find a use for you back home. Back on Elm Street.
A small mound formed beside the mask, and then the ground split as an arm burst from the earth. It was hideously scarred, as if its owner had been burned alive, and there was an old leather glove at the end, the fingers ending in 4 razor-sharp blades.
Come here, bitch,
Freddy said, as he grabbed the mask and pulled it under the ground, down and down and down. The end. Okay, Slashaholics, this has been the conclusion of Jason Goes to Hell, the fan novelization by Jeremy Terry. I gotta say, as a whole, I really loved what Jeremy did with the novelization for this movie. He gave us a lot more, backstory. And this may have been a fan novelization, but I think even Adam Marcus would agree that Jeremy did an amazing job. And Adam, if you ever listen, I really hope you enjoyed it as much as all of us did. And thank you for making Jason Goes to Hell. It is honestly, it and Jason X are honestly my favorite Jason movies of all time. And I think Jeremy did an amazing job honoring and respecting and expanding the story of Jason Goes to Hell. I loved all the backstory we got on people, like Joey and Shelby. I enjoyed the stuff we got with Duke. We got to understand what the girl in the pink dress with the donut and a hot dog was. We got to find out how Jason knew to talk. We got some cool backstory stuff with Elias and Pamela with their journals. It was really, really good. I love the little reference there with the crate. Anybody else catch that in the final chapter? The crate down there. I'm so glad Jeremy kept that because it was in the movie. The whole creep show connection. Love that. There's so much I wanted to cover here. All the Necronomicon stuff, the Kandarian. The Kandorians are Kryptonians, so that that's a Superman thing. But the Kandarian dagger and all the backstory with Elias using the Necronomicon, it was just really, really great. And not to mention Jeremy, added me, Sean, and Alex to the first chapter of the book, and we got to be Jason's first victims after he came back from New York. And I was really glad that Jeremy went in that direction. tying that movie to Jason Goes to Hell, and saying that the events at the end of Jason Takes Manhattan is what made Jason look the way he looked in Jason Goes to Hell. Because, I mean, we did an interview, me and Alex did, with Adam Marcus, and I brought up that theory, and he said that wasn't exactly what he was thinking, but it did, he's like, yeah, I guess I could see that. The melted mask, the bulbous head, it kind of looked like toxic sludge damage. I think it's funny that Jason's outfit before he gets blown up is an outfit that Jeremy had him steal from, like the shirt from me, the pants from Alex, the boots from Sean. So it was fun getting to be a victim of Jason in this. But even with the body jumping stuff, he really brought that to life. Made it. I've seen a lot of comments, people saying they weren't big fans of the movie, but they loved the book, and it's given them a newfound appreciation for the movie. So I'm really happy to hear that, because I think Jason Goes to Hell is a very unique, original entry in the Friday the 13th series, and it takes a chance, and it adds more to the story. It doesn't just repeat the same tropes over and over again like the other movies did. Like, I love Jason X because it is a true-to-life Friday the 13th film, but instead of a camp where a bunch of teenagers, have limited adult supervision, it's a spaceship in the future. But even that one is repeating the tropes. So Jason Goes to Hell still stands out as being probably the most original in the series, and I appreciate it for that, and I think it's a fun entry. One of my only complaints about the movie was we didn't get Kane Hodder that much. I do like the idea that when Jason was reborn in the book, since there was no budgetary restraints, he wasn't reborn with the bulbous head and the decaying body and the old clothes and the old mask, but he was reborn as a man, like fully alive, fully, skin's fine, has both of his eyes, and that the producer had left some old coveralls down there and a hockey mask. So he wasn't reborn wearing the hockey mask and old clothes and stuff. That was really neat too, Jeremy. Great job there. Hell, this book even gave an explanation for why Jason was shaving the one guy. I mean, Jeremy really went above and beyond with this novelization, and I think we owe him a round of applause, or at the very least, drop a thank you in the comment section for Jeremy Terry. He really did work hard on this, and he did an amazing job. If you want to hear more of my opinions on the story, you can go back and listen to the playlist of the chapters, and at the end of each of those, I talk about what I thought of each chapter as we went. But since this is the part that'll be at the end of the unabridged version, I wanted to cover kind of the whole thing in a nutshell, and I think I've done that. So I'm going to quit rambling, and I just want to say I appreciate you all for... Oh, sorry. Lost my train of thought. Also, Jeremy, I enjoyed the fact that you drug out the Freddy stuff at the end of the book. We didn't just have a claw reaching up and taking it away after a dog dug the mask up. And I enjoyed the fact that it was a cat. Unless I'm remembering it wrong and it was a cat in the movie, but I'm pretty sure it was a dog in the movie. But I love that you made it a cat, and that really helps when Freddy's like, look what the cat drug in. Thank you for giving me a couple lines as Freddy. I love voicing Freddy. But no, that was really cool. It really set up Freddy versus Jason better. And, I think if they had Robert Englund to voice Freddy in Jason Goes to Hell, Adam probably would have added a line or two there as well. But yeah, great job. Thank you so much, everybody. Please let him know what you thought of the book, and drop him a thank you in the comments as well. I'll be back very soon with more slasher mayhem here on the channel. Lots of great stuff coming up. If you haven't seen it already, I also dropped my first full-fledged original novel, Celestial Slumber, A Nightmare on Elm Street story. It's pretty much Freddy in space. The full unabridged audiobook is available on the channel right now. And yeah, we're going to be popping out some really cool stuff soon. A fan fiction story by Rashad Moore, a subscriber and patron. I'm also going to be doing the Freddy Krueger's Tales of Terror #1 blind date. That's the last one of those to do in that series. And I'm going to get back to Freddy vs. Ash. And eventually I'm hoping to redo Church of the Divine Psychopath and even Final Destination, Destination Zero. And Jeremy Terry is working on his first original slasher novel. It's going to be a Michael Myers meets Leatherface story. I cannot wait to read that book and narrate it here on the channel. So that's going to be cool. And if anybody out there, Jeremy included, wants to write a Friday the 13th Part 8, Jason Takes Manhattan, I think that would be great to have on the channel, a novelization for that. Even if you throw in a lot of original stuff to the story. You know, give us less time on the cruise ship and more of the stuff that they were going to do in the movie if they had a better budget. And I'm also going to be writing a sequel to Celestial Slumber that's going to have a rematch of Freddy vs. Jason, and they're both going to be in their Uber forms. Uber Jason from Jason X and Uber Freddy from Celestial Slumber. And I've got a pretty cool storyline for how we bring them back together that might even include the Cenobites from Hellraiser. We'll just have to see how it plays out. Until next time, this has been your friendly neighborhood 80s slasher librarian saying, thanks for listening, be excellent to each other, and remember, the sun never sets on those who ride into it.